Hey, this is the antisocial socialite back at it again. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, you have not yet subscribed, what are you waiting for, darling? Hit that subscribe button, smash that notification bell so when I get to running this mouth, girl, boy, and everyone in between, you are in the loop. You see the title, you know what time it is. I've got to hold these two front teeth because I've got to pronounce a word with an S in it. Two S's, state-sanctioned marriage, prenups and polygyny. So I was going to do the polygyny video by itself, and this is me just throwing some thoughts out there, but they're all kind of in the same avenue, so I'm just going to chuck them in a short video. Okay, why I personally support state-sanctioned marriage. I did a video, a quick live on this for Instagram, so if you haven't subscribed to me, Miss Antisocial Socialite, please follow me on Instagram as well. Once upon a time, we used to have something called patriarchy, and for all of patriarchy's faults, patriarchy where it was working, it helped to continue the balance of protection, masculinity, and femininity. Now, although we don't like to think of women as property, the daughter was a prized possession of the father that he wanted to give to the right man who would take on the role that he is now giving up. He was supposed to be the protector now, the provider now for this daughter, which is why during the marriage ceremony, to an extent, you have this practice of the father giving the daughter away. It's not just some symbolic, part of the ceremony that needs to be done for doing its sake. It was supposed to be a transfer of ownership from the father's house to the husband's house. Now, from a biblical perspective, the scripture says that a man should love his wife, and even be willing to lay down his life for her. So although she is deemed as a possession, she is a prized possession. She is somebody valuable, treasured, and the scripture specifically tells a man to love his wife. Now, I often would say a lot of scripture is general, it's universal. Whether you're a man or a woman, if you're in the faith, it applies to you. But this is definitely a scripture that has been specifically tailored to speak directly to the need of the man or the woman. Why does the scripture specifically tell a man to love his wife? Because a man who is logical, he thinks about the future, he thinks about the long-term consequences of his actions. He can see 2, 3, 4, several steps ahead, is going to find it very hard to reason with a woman who is subjective, who is a short-term thinker, who is emotional. It's like the frustration you may feel trying to reason with a child. Now, I know a lot of women don't like to be compared to children, but that same subjective, emotional behavior that you experience when dealing with children is what often a man will face dealing with a woman. We all know the textbook scenario. The child comes home late, they've broken their curfew, the father locks the child out to teach the child a lesson. Well, once upon a time it used to be the father doing that, and the mother will creep down in the middle of the night and let her poor baby in. And now it's causing a conflict because the child hasn't really learned a lesson. Okay, they love their mother because the mother always has sympathy, but the child hasn't learned the lesson of actions lead to consequences, maybe not to the fullest. So the father's now got an issue with the mother and the child because the father's authority has been undermined, and the father's trying to teach a valuable lesson that eventually we're all going to have to face in the adult world, which is there are consequences to your actions. Okay, the mother is thinking, my poor baby right now, but the father is thinking, I'm going to teach you the hard lesson now so you don't get into hard situations further on down the road. Okay, so the way men and women parent is different. The way men and women think is different. The way men and women approach different situations is different. So a man is going to have a lot of patience when dealing with a woman This is why the scripture specifically encourages the man to love her. Love her for who she is. Love her despite her flaws. Love her despite her irrational behavior or her, emotionalism. Because although it may get on his nerves in terms of his logical side, obviously she has other attributes that are great that, you can't let that lack of reason hinder you from experiencing. Let me put it like this. Now, if the man is too hard, if the man is too firm, that playful, carefree softness of the woman is going to soften him up. And likewise, his logic, his strategic thinking, his long-term thinking, that's going to rub off on her, and it's going to cause her to mature in a way that maybe she wouldn't have in the presence of other women. Unfortunately, because of feminism, we do not have the patriarchal structure where you have the father vetting the daughter's boyfriend. The father is, putting pressure on the man. Either, this is my standards. Either you meet these standards or you have to go. Okay? Because of the sexual revolution, because women are now free to do whatever they want with whoever they want, they no longer have the benefits of patriarchy, which was a form of protection. It was parental guidance. Okay? So the reason why I support state-sanctioned marriage is because, unfortunately, this is one of the instances where the government taking the place of the man to an extent serves a decent purpose. If a man in a climate where he can be dragged over the coals, where he can lose half of his possessions, where he can be made to pay crazy child support even for children that are not his. I mean, if you're in the UK, we don't have such strict laws for the everyday person. I don't know anybody personally who's been put on child support in the UK. Okay, because you don't really need that. The welfare system, you can go and tell a sob story and you get benefits. So they're not putting the man on child support because the government wants to hear that you're on your own so that you can get benefits. So you're not going to need to put the man on child support. You already have the government for that. So it's slightly different because in the UK we don't pay for everything like that. Unfortunately, people who pay taxes obviously pay for the people who are not contributing. So if a man says in a tough climate like this where you have so much uncertainty, I still want to marry you, what that really does is show you that he really means it. This is why, although the laws need to be changed, the laws are unfair, I still support state-sanctioned marriage, because state-sanctioned marriage is the way to know if a man truly wants to commit to you. If he sees you as wife material, if he really has that trust and that faith and that confidence in you, he's going to propose. Because he has too much to lose if it goes wrong. If the man has nothing to lose, his proposal doesn't really mean anything. So for women who are like, I was proposed to several times and I didn't take any of these brothers up on their offer, you've missed maybe a great opportunity, because in this climate, for a man to actually get down on that one knee, and I've done a video already, we determine who gets sex, but men determine who gets married. Women can determine which men get sexual access, but at the end of the day, if a man really doesn't want to marry you, he's just not going to marry you. He's either going to treat you as, somebody for casual sex, maybe somebody as a placeholder or a girlfriend. And I mean, I'm just generalizing, and I'm not going to say to anybody, leave your partner or whatever, but the forever girlfriend business is not an ideal situation to be, because as the man is aging, he's growing in value. But as a woman is aging, she's not growing in value. She's just not, because the main asset that a woman has is her youthfulness and her fertility. So if you're spending years wasting time with somebody who's not right and who doesn't want to commit, that's time that you're not going to get back. Okay, and I'm not saying rush anything. I'm not saying put pressure, and because again, the downside of the climate, the fact that we don't have patriarchy, we don't have closed communities, is you can't really get married quickly anymore. Once upon a time, people lived in such closed communities that you knew people, you knew a lot about them before you even engaged them on from a romantic standpoint. You knew their family, you knew where they lived. If something went wrong, you could track them down. Now we live scattered, we live far from our family, we don't necessarily stay in one place, we commute long distances to work, so we can live very different lives depending on what face we want to present. So it's going to take longer for a man to feel like he really can trust a woman to even commit to her, because it's very hard for him to know who she truly is. He's working, you're working, you guys maybe are talking on the phone or whatever, but people can pretend for a long time. A lot of people are pretending all the time, especially in the age of social media. People can create whole profiles where they're not who they say they are. So people have got used to acting and presenting a certain face, which means that for a man who's looking to commit with so much on the line, it's very hard for him to do that. So unfortunately, the time that people are going to be quote unquote engaged and dating and courting is probably going to be much longer on average. People say if you're going to get married and you really mean the business, set a date and just do it quickly. Definitely, but to get to that point might take longer now, because it takes longer for people to get to know who we really are. Okay? So that's one of the reasons why I still support the state marriage, because at the end of the day, if a man really wants to marry you, he will ask you on that one knee. Because a lot of women don't have the guidance of fathers, they don't have the protection of males in their life, the only kind of protection that they have, that they're not going to marry the wrong person. And this is not about protecting women and doing everything for the sake of women, but I'm just saying to women, because you don't have the protection in a lot of instances of a father who's going to vet men for you and guide you into picking a decent man, which is why so many women are online complaining, because they keep picking the wrong type of men. The only kind of security you have and covering is kind of like, if the guy is willing to say, will you be my wife? It's a good sign that he actually likes you and wants to marry you. Not always, but in a lot of instances. Now, for the prenup, I was one of these people who was very adamant that the prenup is a sign of this marriage is going to fail. And it's only since I came into the manosphere where I really understood what was at risk for a man that I was like, oh yeah, prenup actually makes sense. Now, I'm not a fan of prenups with loads of stupid stipulations. If you gain a certain amount of weight, or if you do this, or if you do that, or, if you put the egg on the wrong side of the sausage kind of thing. It's like all that kind of nonsense. I think that's too much for a prenup. But definitely prenups that are about my money, what we come into the relationship with. If the man makes a certain amount of money, or he comes into the relationship with a certain amount of funds, I believe he has every right, if the relationship, and the marriage ends, for him to leave with the money that he entered with. That's perfectly fair. That's perfectly fine. If you accumulate wealth between you, that money should be shared because you both contributed to the building of that wealth. But what you enter into the marriage with, you should leave with, because you didn't help to contribute to the development of that wealth, so why should you get it? And if he wants to give you some of it, that's fine, but it shouldn't be something that you're owed just because you were once upon a time his wife. So I'm very much in favour of people, women in particular, who get with men of means, signing a prenup. It's just that simple. If you never get divorced, then you'll never need the prenup. And if you do get divorced, at least it's fair, and if you're willing to sign a prenup, you're letting the man know you're not just in it for the money. So, as for the polygyny, right? I am not keen on the idea of a man having more than one woman because I'm selfish. All right? But I understand it, okay? And the funny thing is this, as I was kind of thinking about this today, we are kind of entering into quote unquote biblical times where there is a shortage or a dearth of decent quality men. You know, in the Old Testament, it wasn't just about power and a man having more than one woman because he could have more than one. It was a necessity. You know, it was better for a woman to become a second wife or a concubine even than to be destitute. And what we see right now with the coronavirus and a lot of people just not being raised to be skillful, not being raised to be long-term thinkers, you're kind of in a climate where you have a shortage of eligible men who now have a pick of a multitude of women. They're not just dying from war, they're not just dying from labor, they're literally just being neutered from childhood because they're raised to be effeminate, raised to be weak, raised to be passive, which means that, okay, you have a lot of males, but you don't necessarily have a lot of real men that are worthy of you know, passing on their genetics to the next generation. And as a result of that, this is why you have OnlyFans, this is why you have Instagram and a lot of these websites, private Snapchats and things full of women looking for men. So, although I know I personally wouldn't want to be a sister wife, I understand the concept of polygyny. Now, what I would say is this. Polygyny is not having a multitude of baby mamas scattered all over the place, okay? It's not just recklessly sowing seed here and there. If I was gonna practice polygyny, my rule would have to be everyone lives in the one house and it's in order. If you don't have one house, you have to have like a compound, like a gated area, and all of you live, if you each have a property or each wife has a property with the children, they all live together. So all the children know who their siblings are. Each wife knows who the other wife is. You know, it's not some, I've got a wife in Canada, I've got a wife in Africa, I've got a wife in Europe, you know, and they just, you know, one doesn't know about the other. Children who are siblings are walking past each other in the street and don't even know, you know, this is my brother or my sister. That's not polygyny, okay? For me, I'm not excited about the idea, but we can see with this virus, and obviously when I say the virus, I don't mean the virus, because for those of you who've watched my video, you know that I believe there's a virus, but I don't believe that this is about health. This is about using anything as an excuse to basically take people's rights away. Fear is being used to control the masses because people are irrational when they're afraid. But with this massive job losses, people going into debt, people are desperate, maybe this is going to cause a rise in polygyny where people are going to just turn a blind eye to mistresses and why did I pick a word with an S? Mistresses and the shy chick. Because they're like, I would rather keep you and her on the side than lose everything and have to go out into the world and claim benefits for the first time and try to make it on my own. So we're living in some strange times, but for me, if I was going to say polygyny, you know, there's a lot of things I don't agree with the Mormons with, but that's one thing I can say I respect them over. If they have, if a man has more than one wife, they live together as one big family, you know. So let me know what you think in the comment section. What are your rules for marriage? What are your kind of thoughts on, you know, should a man have more than one wife? Do you think a woman can handle more than one husband? Like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.